Leadership is a responsibility to people around us. It's not a rank. You've heard me say this before. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders.
Right.
They have authority, and we do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them.
Right.
And I know many people, as do you, who sit at lower levels of organizations who have no formal authority, in that they've made a choice to look after the person to the left of them and look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. In other words, leadership can come from anywhere within an organization. Yes, we have the right to demand to have better leaders and better leadership in our companies. But when we don't, quitting is not the only option, nor is simply complaining, but undertaking the task of becoming the leader we wish we had.
Wow.
You know, anyone at any level can become a student of leadership, and anyone at any level can choose to take to look after this person and that person and work tirelessly to see that they rise, they become better versions of themselves, and that they show up to work inspired and go home feeling fulfilled and feel safe when they're at work because of us.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world. One of my favorite quotes, Mahatma Gandhi. If you're not happy with something, you're not happy with a situation, you fix it. That's why entrepreneurs are going to solve all the problems. As much as there's government and big business, I think it's entrepreneurs, it's us. We're going to solve all the world's problems because we see a problem and we want to fix it. We want to solve it. That's what we do. That's the most exciting part of being an entrepreneur, is that you're not waking up and driving to some job that you hate, where the work you're doing does not matter, has no meaning, and instead you get to do something that is actually going to touch somebody's life and that is meaningful to you, right? You get to pick, you get to decide, you get to choose, and we're trying to make the world a better place. We're going to make money doing it too, but mission first, purpose first, and then making money along the way in service of others. And it's in that combination of what you love doing with what brings value to other people that you have a successful business. Part of that then becomes being a leader as well. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with being a leader because at the beginning, we are just managing ourselves, and that's hard enough, right? Like, have you had a hard time managing yourself? Have you had a hard time sticking to your routines and keeping to your motivation and staying strong on the things that you say you're gonna do? Like, self-management, self-leadership is hard enough. Now we're gonna go off and lead other people as well. And where do we learn about leadership? We don't go to school for this. We don't have programs. We don't probably have great mentors to help us. If you had jobs in the past, or maybe you're at a job right now, you probably don't have the greatest leaders around you. Most people suck at it. But it doesn't have to be extremely difficult. And it took me a long time to get used to it and get better at it, and I'm still learning and improving. But we've got almost 40 people on the team now, and when people ask me what's my definition of leadership, it's I want people to win more than I want them to win with me. And so the key becomes wanting the humans that are on your team to win as humans more than you want them to win with you. That you can have this little disconnection. Obviously they have to do the work if they're gonna work with you, but sometimes the best thing for them to do is to move on. Not because they're not doing their job, but because it's the best thing for them. And so when I connect with the people on my team, it's always trying to figure out where do they want to go? What do they want to learn? What do they want to improve on? And I see everybody as running parallel paths with me. So the people around you, the people, even us right now, what we're doing right now, this is a parallel path. You've decided to watch this video. I decided to record this video, and we're sharing this moment in time. And maybe you never watch another Evan Carmichael video again. Maybe you end up watching all my videos and we end up being partners on some future business. Who knows? You know, maybe I'm seeing you every day in the future. But as of right now, we're on this parallel path together. And when somebody's with you, walking down that parallel path, the goal of a great leader, I think, should be to try to make that person leave better than how they came in. Right? Have you ever heard the expression, or maybe it's just something my grandfather used to tell me about, you know, when you go to a hotel or you go to a new city or you go to a new event, they always try to leave the place better than when you came. You know, and hopefully that's our goal for life. You know, in this life, we try to leave the world a little better than how it was when we came in. And so if you take that approach to leadership, that when you're with the people on your team, and maybe it's for a week, on some really short internship, maybe it's for a year, maybe it's for 5 years, 10 years, maybe it's for their entire life with you, that they have left a little bit better than when they came in. because they got to hang around you. And not taking it as an ego play, like I'm gonna make this person's life better because I am so amazing. It's more out of care, genuine care for the people on your team. And I think when we're first hiring, we suck at it. Most entrepreneurs suck at hiring. Most entrepreneurs, their first employee is not with them, a year, 2 years, 3 years later, because they hired the wrong person. They have no idea how to manage that person. It's not that that person sucks. It's more that you don't have the skill set. We don't have the skill sets at the beginning to know how to even find the right person, let alone manage them. And so, that's a skill that we have to develop. But I think it just starts with genuinely caring about the people on your team. That yes, they have to get the work done, right? There's a job that has to get done. But how we often think about it is more from a selfish perspective, as I need to get this stuff off my plate, right? You're overloaded with work, right? Are you overloaded with work? We're overloaded with work. So I gotta hire somebody to take this off my plate so I don't have to deal with that ever again, and it frees up my time to go and do other stuff, right? Sound familiar? Listen, at the beginning, when you bring on a team, it takes more time. It takes more time than it frees up because you have to train them, you have to listen to them, you have to care for them, you have to answer their questions. If you treat them like a robot or a monkey, they're not going to stick with you. You're going to constantly be hiring and firing and hiring and firing. And you're going to be massively frustrated and overwhelmed. And a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in that cycle where, has this happened to you? You hire somebody, it looks great on paper. You're so excited for it to go, and then it doesn't work out a couple months later. And then you decide that, you know what, I'm just going to do it all myself, right? I know I can get it done. I'm just going to do it all myself. Does that happen to you? That is not the path to building a movement. You can have a great little solo business for yourself, but that's not how you change the world. That's not how you realize your potential. That's not how you have the impact that you're capable of having. You have to have people around you. If you've got a big mission. If you don't have a big mission, it's just you, cool, go for it. But if you've got a big mission, then it needs to be team. And that becomes a skill set that you have to pick up and learn. And so leadership for me is, again, caring about people as humans more than caring about them winning with you. It's about discovering what they want to learn and grow and improve at, and you being a vehicle to help them do that. And it's surprising how often you can find things that support them and support you. Not all the time. I remember having one guy on my team who his dream was to be a baker. Like, well, I don't have an interest in opening up a bake shop, right? But ultimately, you should leave us and go do your passion, because I can't help you inside of this job until I open a bake shop that can really support you in what you want to do. And so, even though he wanted to stay, he was staying more out of fear and insecurity than actually doing something that he was deeply passionate about. So I gave him till the end of the year. If it was, summer, so give him to the end of the year to, okay, as of the end of the year, you're out and you have to go find a job. I love you, but you have to go find something that is in line with your dream, because you staying here is safe and is actually squashing your dreams. You have to go do your thing. And so, he had to go and move on. And was appreciative for it and giving him time, not like, okay, you're fired next week. And then you have other people though, and usually you can find something inside of what they care about. So the amount of people who I've met on my team who then they want to learn graphic design, or they want to learn Photoshop, or they want to learn copywriting, or they want to learn how to come up with good titles, or they want to learn better communication skills, or they want to learn, they have their lists of like the things that they want to learn. It's like, cool, as long as there's something that we've got that can help you with that, some kind of program, some project, something that can also bring value to the company, then let's do it. Because when people are working on the things that they feel like they're growing in and they're learning in, they're gonna, it's just a good thing to do because it's from the heart, and when they feel connected to your heart, everybody's happier and more productive. But it's also just good business strategy. If you want to just put your XO business strategy hat on, it's great. This is how karma becomes practical. If somebody's engaged and they feel like they're learning and they're growing and they're improving, you're going to get the best of them versus you have to feel bored and stuck and learning nothing new, right? That's what most people do in their jobs. And honestly, the bar for leadership is so low. It's so low. Most people wake up and drive to that job that they hate. So all you have to do, to be honest, to be their best boss is probably just to not be a bad boss. You don't have to be a great boss. You just have to not be a bad boss. You just have to treat somebody like a normal human being and actually have a little bit of care and compassion and curiosity to see them win in life. You do that, you're already probably their best boss of all time. I think that's a pretty low standard, but it's a great starting point to then be able to say, hey, no, I want this person to have come out of my organization, whether that's in a month or a year or 10 years from now, a better human because they were with us. And it's totally possible. It's just a mindset shift that these people are on your team because they have something to prove as well and they want to learn. And it's not just about you saving your time and dumping stuff off of your plate and giving it to somebody else so it can be all delegated away. It's that you are a leader and you care about people and you want to see them win. And you're responsible for making sure that they get pushed outside their comfort zone. You got a big mission inside you. It's a huge mission. And you can't do this alone. And you may not have the skills yet to be the leader that you want to be. Maybe not yet, but you've got a big heart. And honestly, that's the biggest skill that you ever need.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
When are you at your best?
I'm at my best when I'm around people who believe what I believe. I know it seems silly, but I try very, very hard to sort of stack the deck, to put myself in a position of strength. So for example, somebody asked me just yesterday, have you ever had sort of a bad, engagement? And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, not really, but it's not because I'm some sort of genius or anything like that. It's because I stack the deck. It's because I want to be there. I want to be around people who want me there. In other words, if I'm somebody's 10th choice, and I'll probably turn it down. Whereas if I'm their first choice, they really want me there, and so I'm more likely to have a good engagement. They're supportive of me, I'm supportive of them, and so I'm at my best when I stack the deck, when I choose to be in an environment where my strengths are there.
I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, Microsoft gave me their new Zune. And it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zoom, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy. Because the joy comes not from comparison, but from advancement. Every decision we make in our lives as individuals or as organizations is a piece of communication. It's our way of saying something about who we are and what we believe. This is why authenticity matters. This is why you have to say and do the things you actually believe, because the things you say and do are symbols of who you are. And we look for those symbols so we can find people who believe what we believe. Our very survival depends on it. So if you're putting out false symbols, you will attract people to those symbols, but you won't be able to form trust with them. This is what Tiger Woods did to us. He lied. He lied. He told us what he thought we wanted to hear. And it was great, and we were drawn to it. And all of us who kind of liked that idea of the sort of the good guy, were drawn to it, until we found out it was a lie. He could have been the bad boy of golf. He could have had all the same endorsements and had a fantastic career and still been hailed as one of the great athletes of our day. But he didn't. He chose to lie. Good luck forming trust again, Tiger. We don't believe you. We don't trust you. The goal of putting something out there, if you say what you believe and you do what you believe, you will attract people who believe what you believe. If you go to one of your friends and you say to one of your friends, how would you like me to dress so that you'll like me better? How would you want me to address you? How do you want me to speak so that you'll like me more? Right? Your friends are going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about? You're like, come on. What should I wear so that you'll find me more appealing? And how would you like me to speak to you so that you'll like me more? And your friends are going to tell you, just be yourself. That's why I like you. Just be yourself. Now think about what we do in industry. What do? We do market research, and we go out and we ask the customers, what kind of things, what style should we speak to you? How should we decorate ourselves? What kind of things are you drawn to so that we can do those things so you'll like us more? It's just as ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous. Organizations should say and do the things they actually believe, and they will attract people who believe what they believe. Or they can choose to lie, and at the slightest hint that they might be lying, cynicism sets in. And people start saying, I'm not sure I can trust these guys because there's not a lot of consistency in all the things they say and do, which means they can't have a very strong belief set or they're lying to me. And we call them inauthentic. The entire process of asking other people who we should be is inauthentic. That's hilarious to me. All these positioning studies we do are inherent. We're going to do a study to find out from people so we can be more authentic. That's hilarious. Say and do what you actually believe, and the symbols you put out there, the things you say and the things you do, those red hats are ways that people can find you. What you have the ability to do as designers is create those symbols and allow people to use those things to say something about who they are. Work for companies, work for clients, work for people who you believe what they believe. Show up and feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And your part is to put what they believe into pictures and words and symbols and graphics so that other people can use those things to say something about who they are. People put Harley-Davidson logos on their body to say something about who they are. Corporate logo. Ain't no Procter & Gamble's tattooed on anybody's arm. Because Harley means something. They stand for something. People put that tattoo on there not to tell you that they own a motorcycle. They put that tattoo there to tell you something about themselves. You ever see anybody with a Mac laptop put a sticker over that beautiful shining apple? Ain't never gonna happen. Then how will you know who I am? Do you ever see anybody with a PC break out the Windex to clean out their computer? Mac people? Have you ever seen a dirty Mac? Doesn't exist. Does not exist. Why? Because it's who I am. These are symbols we use. The companies that are crystal clear in what they believe, and they're disciplined in how they do it, and they're consistent in what they do, and everything they say and everything they do serves as a symbol of the set of values and beliefs. We use those symbols to say something about who we are. We surround ourselves with the people and the products and the brands that say something about who we are. And when we can find the people who believe what we believe, we're weirdly drawn to them because our very survival depends on it. We need it. And so the more you can give of yourself, the more you can give of what you believe, the more you can with discipline, say and do the things you actually believe, strange things start to happen.
What are your thoughts and what's your approach on finding and building upon passions?
Passion is not an actionable word. It's correct, that those who do the things that they're passionate about do better, but it's not helpful advice. And so the question is, where does passion come from? Passion is a result. Passion is an energy. Passion is the feeling you have when you're engaged in something that you love. Passion is the feeling you have that you would probably do this for free, and you can't believe somebody pays you to do it. And I think we mistake that passion is something we do in our private lives, but it shouldn't be done, in our careers, for example. And I'm a firm believer that you are who you are. And anybody who says, I'm different at home than I am at work, in one of those two places, you're lying. And the goal is to make everything you do in home and at work something that you have excitement to do. So how do you find the things that you're excited to do? Well, it's actually easier than you think. What are the things that you love to do? What are the things that you would do for free? How can you recreate that feeling and be paid for it? So what are the things that I do on the weekend, right? I love, I'm very involved in the art world. I love to go to museums and galleries, but I love to go see dance and performances because I want to see how others are interpreting the world. So that inspires me. New ideas, new thoughts, new ways of looking at the world are things that interest me privately, and I seek it out and pay money for it, right? So does that mean I have to have a career in the arts? No, it means I have to have a career where new ideas are explored, where people are experimenting and trying things out, and I have to explore new ideas and try things out, and I'm just as excited to go to work every day as I am to, go do something on a Saturday night. And so the idea of finding your passion is ironically simple because you should be doing stuff that you enjoy sometimes. What is the stuff that you enjoy, and then what is the stuff that you love? Who are the people that you love, and what do they all have in common? Nelson Mandela is a particularly special case study in the leadership world because he is universally regarded as a great leader. You can take other personalities, and depending on the nation you go to, we have different opinions about other personalities. But Nelson Mandela across the world is universally regarded as a great leader. He was actually the son of a tribal chief. And he was asked one day, how did you learn to be a great leader? And he responded that he would go with his father to tribal meetings. And he remembers two things when his father would meet with other elders. One, they would always sit in a circle. And two, his father was always the last to speak. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does two things. One, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And 2, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. The skill is really to keep your opinions to yourself. If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. And at the end, you will get your turn. It sounds easy, it's not. Practice being the last to speak. That's what Nelson Mandela did.
How do you develop self-confidence? We're kind of going off here now, but this is a topic I'm really passionate about right now. I believe self-doubt is one of the biggest killers to anyone's dreams.
Yeah.
So how does someone develop self-confidence and sustain it with the ever-going changes and stresses and uncertainties that always come up?
Yeah.
Once you reach a certain level, there's a new uncertainty.
Yeah. So I think it's ironic that we call it self-confidence, because I don't, for one, think it comes from the inside. I think our self-confidence comes from the outside, right?
You mean that's the wrong way of going about it, or you think that's where it comes from in general?
We are being misdirected by the name. When we say build your self-confidence, that's the instruction is saying go inside, look inside oneself. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a false direction. Children aren't born self-confident. Their confidence is built from their parents and their friends and their teachers, where they're rewarded when they do well and they're pushed when they fail, when they can do better. Simply, we know this, that simply telling kids that they're great all the time actually doesn't build self-confidence, actually does the total opposite. Right? And I, for one, I can tell you, in my own experience, my own self-confidence, 100% comes from the relationships that I have. It's not some deep internal fortitude. A world-famous trapeze artist is not going to try a brand new death-defying act for the first time without a net. So it's the people in my life. It's when I do doubt myself that somebody says, you got this. When somebody says, I believe in you. When somebody says, no matter what happens, whether it succeeds or fails, I'm going to be by your side. That's when I have the confidence to do difficult things.
Wow.
Right? I don't have some natural battery that just
right.
That to me is bravado.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's self-confidence. Being a huge risk taker is not an indication of self-confidence to me. Jumping out of a plane and jumping out of a plane with a parachute are two different things, right?
Right.
To me, self-confidence is measured, and there should be a degree of doubt. But I think true self-confidence, belief in oneself and belief in one's cause, I could not do the things that I'm doing, and I would not have the strength to have made the sacrifices that I've made, or continue to wake up on a daily basis to drive to spread this message, if I were alone. And so when we talk about building one's self-confidence, I think the mistake that we make is that we look inside. I think the reality is when we're trying to build our self-confidence, we should be looking to our friends. We should be nursing our relationships. When I'm looking to build my self-confidence, the question is, who around me do I need to take care of? The way we build our self-confidence is by helping somebody else build theirs.
Right.
It's an act of, we will build our confidence with an act of service.
What are your thoughts around courage? How do people get the courage to play the long game?
It's not the long game, it's the infinite game. Because a long game could be 5 years, right?
True.
Yeah, this is forever.
How do people build that?
Everything that we're talking about in the infinite game is really, 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 really hard. It is so much easier to build a company based on short-term ambitions than it is an infinite cause. It just is, right? It's also fun, right? Until it's not. Less inspiring, but sometimes fun, right? Hitting a goal feels good, right? It's much easier to just hire and fire people
frequently, hire fast, fire fast, as to hiring slowly and firing slowly because we try and take care of our people as best we can. It's hard to build teams. All of that stuff we talked about leadership, like what am I supposed to do to build a trusting team? Well, I wish I could give you a list of 5 things. It's really, really hard to be a parent. It's much easier to be an uncle or an aunt or not have kids, right? It's hard, right? So why do it? You know, it's fun and exciting to try and beat our competitors, you know? But to have to face our own weaknesses every day, oh, that's exhausting. You know, existential flexibility, I'd rather not. I just would rather not. You know? So the reason this takes courage to completely change our mindset, A, about the game that we're actually players in, and how we want to approach these things, and do we want to shift our mindset in our organizations to prepare for the infinite game, to be organized for the infinite game, it takes courage because we're going to be swimming upstream in a world that is very finite driven. You know, the pressures on us are overwhelming from Wall Street or our own egos or from internal incentive structures or our bosses, whatever it is. The pressures are overwhelming for us to play the finite game. And so how do you stand up to massive external pressure? Courage. And courage is something that comes from relationships. You know, it's external. A world-famous trapeze artist would never attempt a brand new death-defying act for the first time without a net. They would never do it. So why do we think that we could do something difficult without external support too? I've had the opportunity to meet real heroes, people who've risked their lives to save the lives of others with the belief that they were going to die, and they didn't. And when asked, why did you do it? They all say something similar, which is they would have done it for me. It's external. And so we have to take the time to foster and take care of people around us, to nurture our relationships, because when we're going to be doing something difficult, when we're going to be swimming upstream, when we're going to be innovating and doing something different, there are days we're going to doubt ourselves. There are days we're going to get knocked in our ass. There are days that storms are going to rise, and we have to have people who say, I got your back. You need to do this. We need you. The world needs this. Keep going. I believe in you, you know? And so courage comes from not only our willingness to do that for others, but then their willingness to do it for us. And if we commit ourselves to a just cause and we're willing to do those things, then, you know, the great thing is we take a lot of people with us and change the world for the better. And isn't that sort of the point of an infinite life? To leave this world in better shape than we found it, to leave the companies that we work for in better shape than when we started, to leave our families stronger and better capable than they can do without us. You know, isn't that what it means to live an infinite life? That we can literally live on beyond our own lives. We take accountability away from people and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So we're actually destroying people's confidence or ability to make decisions because we keep answering their questions or making decisions for them. I had a boss many years ago, one of the best leaders I ever had, Peter Intamaggio, and he wouldn't answer a single question I asked. It drove me absolutely nuts. Hey, Peter, you know, what should I do? Well, what do you think we should do? Well, I think we should do this. He goes, well, you should give that a try then. You know? Or he would just ask me questions. He goes, well, have you considered this? I went, no. He goes, well, maybe think about that, you know? But he would never tell me the answer. He'd always tell me the parameters. What he taught me was self-reliance. It was the most valuable lesson I probably ever learned. Very often, you know, somebody will come and say, you know, should we go with blue or green? I'll go with green. Well, we just answered the question. We'll say, go with the one you think we should go with. Well, what should we do here? Make the decision that you think is the right decision to make. You know? And then let them make the decision. And when we give people accountability, the amazing thing is they rise to it.
Yeah.
But we keep taking the accountability because we keep answering all the questions. So there's a very easy lesson for everyone here is stop replying to all the emails that you're getting while you're away, right? Like, I know what happens, you know, in every break or right now, you know, there's an email that says, you know, should we go with this one or that one? And you're replying. And in every break, you're going to reply to all your emails and tell people your opinion on what you think they should do. Versus saying, I'm going away for a few days for this conference so I can learn to be a better leader. Hold down the fort while I'm away. If there's an emergency, figure it out, you know? Or only call me if you absolutely do not know the answer.
Have to.
And stop replying to all the emails, and they now have to work. You're giving away responsibility. one of the reasons they don't take responsibility is because they don't give it to them.
Heck, man, I've disagreed with my own ideas. You know, I've been pig-headed and dogmatic about this is the way we got to go, and everybody is wonderful and
then 10 years later, you're
kind of like falls apart, and they're just like,
Okay.
yeah, I kind of screwed the pooch on that one.
Yeah.
But I take accountability.
Yeah.
You know, or we find in the middle, somebody goes, hey, if we do this, we can probably be more successful, and we pivot. There has to be, at the decision-making ranks, there has to be a humility, that the ideas don't always have to come from me.
Right.
Bob Gaylor, the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, has the best definition of humility I've ever heard. He said, don't confuse humility with meekness. Humility is being open to the ideas of others. So, you know, it's not about like, oh, shucks. That's not humility. You know, you and I know some remarkable leaders, people of great power and authority, and they have huge egos.
Yes.
You know, they know they're good, and they don't mind talking about how good they are. But when somebody says, hey, I got an idea, they lean in like they're little kids. They go, let's hear it. You know, I'm looking at some of the photographs on your wall, and some of the folks that I know here, they have an insatiable curiosity for ideas, and even though they're unbelievably accomplished, if you have something to share with them, they want to talk about it. They want to hear about it. That's humility to me. You know? So it's not this, you know, it's not me, it's, you know.
Right.
Self-confidence is a good thing. Thinking you're better than everyone else, that's unhealthy.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
You know, thinking you're good is healthy. Thinking you're better than others is unhealthy.
One thing, make them work together. Shared incentives is also a part of the thing. Usually all we do is give individual incentives, which means we're only incentivizing behavior to work individually. And by the way, incentives don't always have to be financial. It can be just recognition and reward. You know, catch people doing things right. So when you see people helping each other and sharing, call it out publicly. You know, compliment publicly, criticize privately, in front of the rest of the team. Give people promotions when there's a behavior that you want to promote, like teaming. But also ask people to solve problems together and thank them together. And if one person comes to you and complains, well, I'm doing all the work, you say, well, why don't you find out maybe they're struggling, maybe they're like, we have to push back. And also, I think the most important thing is leading by example. Asking for help. I mean, when the leader acts like they know everything and they have all the answers, then all it's doing is telling everybody else, you better know everything and have all the answers because that's how you're going to get ahead here. And so I think one of the most difficult things for anybody in a leadership position to get comfortable with is saying, I don't know, or I need help, or can somebody help me, or can you do this with me? I love teaming with folks on my team. It doesn't matter what the rank structure is, bring in someone junior, let's work together. Even if all they're doing is poking holes, you know, do you think this is good? No, I think it can be better. Okay, let me try again. So I think demonstrating the behavior that we want is a big part of it.
There are 5 practices in order to lead with an infinite mindset. You have to have a just cause. You have to have trusting teams. You have to have a worthy rival. You have to have a capacity for existential flexibility, and you have to have the courage to lead. So just cause. We have to give our people something to advance. A cause so just that they would be willing to sacrifice their interests in order to do so. In other words, turn down a better paying job, or frequent business trips, or working late hours. And though I may not like those things, I do them because it feels worth it. Because I believe in what I'm a part of here, because I feel that I'm helping advance. Because there's no achieving in the infinite game. The goal is not final achievement. The goal is advancing, to progress in the infinite game. And to have that vision of an idealized state of the world that all men are created equal, right? It's an ideal that a nation is striving towards that will never actually get there, but will die trying. That's the point. And we can offer people the same thing inside an organization. In fact, we have to give them something to advance. Now, how is this different from the why? A why comes from the past. It is an origin story. Every single one of us has our own unique why. It is our birthright. It comes from the sum total of how we were raised as kids. It is objective. You have one, and you have one for the rest of your life. The only one, right? And the rest of our lives are about making the decisions that help us keep in balance with our why. A just cause doesn't come from the past. A just cause is about the future. It's about where we're going, right? You can have multiple just causes. You can have one professionally, you can have one personally, you can have one for your family, you can have one for your church. And we're involved in all of these. There's massive pressure put on people, especially young people, to what's your vision? Well, we're not all Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. We're not all visionaries. We don't have to have a vision, but we do have to find a vision, that we can find someone else's vision. And we are so compelled by it that we want to make it our own. That's what it means to go work for a company with a visionary leader, that we believe in that vision so clearly that we take their vision and we make it our own. And we will happily contribute our work, our effort, in order to advance what is now my vision. Right? Martin Luther King had a vision. He stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and told us his vision, but his vision became our vision. So I may not have come up with that vision, but I found it, and I'd like to devote time and energy to help advance it, even beyond him.
There's a whole industry around, I think, work-life balance. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's like there's a massive industry that's just trying to teach this and help people with work-life balance.
Yeah, the problem
But it seems like it's failing. Right?
It's treating a symptom, isn't it? It's like so many things in our life. So here's the bad analogy. So we buy running sneakers, and they have really thick, you know this.
Yeah.
They have really thick heels, tons of padding in the heel, right? But that's because people don't know how to run, right? Because we land with our heel, which is bad for our joints. You know, you're not supposed to have an extended knee. Yeah, all of it. You're supposed to be a toe planter, where your knees are always bent. I mean, you know all this.
Yeah.
So instead of teaching people how to run, what we do is we just build shoes with more padding in the heel and treat the symptom rather than the cause, right? And I think it's the same thing. You know, we treat symptoms instead of the cause.
So
the work-life balance thing, what we're doing is instead of changing businesses, instead of changing the way a business operates and changing the way in which we teach leaders to operate with an infinite mindset, so that we more naturally have work-life balance. And let's be crystal clear what work-life balance means. You know, doing more yoga does not create work-life balance. Right?
That's the shoe.
That's the shoe. That's the cushion on the shoe, right?
Yeah.
The imbalance is, I feel safe at home, I don't feel safe at work. That's the imbalance.
Wow.
And no amount of yoga or vacation time is gonna fix that. What fixes that work-life imbalance is better quality leadership in our businesses. And then what you'll find is the balance. But instead what we do is we have an entire industry that's treating the symptom, that's putting cushion on the shoe to make us feel kinda for an hour that I've achieved balance. You know? But it's just for an hour. And you know, we literally market, you know, companies market themselves as helping provide you work-life balance. Unless you're teaching leaders to the people who are my bosses, then you are not helping me achieve work-life balance. You're helping me numb the pain. You're helping me cushion the blow.
We all carry a narrative. Someone's lazy. Someone's stupid. Someone doesn't care. Someone's only in it for themselves. These are narratives that we carry. And the problem is when we evaluate their behavior through our narrative, it'll become self-reinforcing. We will see the things that reinforce our narrative. And the problem is then we'll treat them that way. If we've decided someone's lazy, we're going to treat them as lazy. So there's a great exercise to do, which is literally take out a piece of paper, and when we're struggling with someone, to think, what are the 20 other things that could be going on in their life? So yeah, number one, they're lazy. Possible. It's absolutely possible. Number two, they're having trouble in their marriage. Number three, their things have gone wrong and they don't know how to ask for help. Number four, they're still struggling with the trauma of COVID. Number five, their kids are flunking out of school. Like all of a sudden, we realize there's a lot of other reasons that could explain their behavior, and we will then treat them accordingly. We will treat them with greater empathy. You know, instead of walking into someone's classroom and saying, what the hell, your performance is still down. I've had this conversation with you before. You got to get your performance up, or I don't know what's going to happen. Or you can walk into their classroom and say, your performance is down. We've had this conversation before. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. They have a problem, but they aren't necessarily the problem. And even if ultimately it does become that they're a bad fit for the culture, they are still not the problem. They still are just a bad fit for the culture. They have a problem. We can help them solve that problem by going to help them relocate to a different school district where they're going to be so much happier. We're going to be so much happier. Everybody gets to be so much happier.
So the other story I was thinking of is the story of Alan Mulally. When he took over Ford, Ford was losing money hand over fist. In other words, performance was in decline. And when he sat down with his most senior executives and he asked for a report on how their divisions were going, red, yellow, green, every single one of them delivered PowerPoints with all green slides. And he said at the end of the meeting, how can everything be green if we're losing billions of dollars? And they just sat there. And he had another meeting. Same thing, all green. And he said the same thing. How can everything be green if we're losing billions of dollars? The problem was the previous leader, if you delivered a red slide, you got fired. And so there was no way that anybody was going to tell the truth because their job depended on it. And so one executive took the risk to turn one slide red. And Mulally said, thank you for the visibility. That's great transparency. Now, how can we all help him fix that problem? He has a problem. He is not the problem. All the other executives thought he was going to get fired. Turns out he wasn't. And slowly but surely, everybody, including leadership, could finally get a clear and transparent view of what was actually going on in their organization. And they worked together to solve the problems. If somebody was struggling, people said, how can we help you? Rather than, I'm fine, you're the one that's screwing everything up. So it's a great way to think about it.
We come to work feeling uncomfortable that some of the decisions that are being made don't benefit the good of the employee, that it really benefits this artificial constituency that we call the shareholder, which is really just a bunch of institutional investors. There's this shareholder myth because there's been a steady decline of the middle class being involved in the stock market for years. And the whole point of the stock market was that we all get to share in the wealth that we helped build, because it's on the back of average Joe employees that produced the great wealth in the nation. And the whole point of the stock market, the genius of the modern day corporation, the genius of the public company, was that we all get to share in the wealth that we're helping produce. Unfortunately, over the course of the 80s and 90s, we've seen systems produced where we're seeing the general population, the middle class, actually be less included in that success. And the reason I wrote The Infinite Game was because I myself got tired of being told by people in positions of authority or people of extreme wealth that I was naive, that I don't understand how business works. And for many years, I believed them. I thought maybe I am the dumb one, right? We all kind of feel that because they have the power, they have the authority, they have the money, they know more than we do, but we still go to work and feel uncomfortable. And it turns out that that discomfort, that gut feeling that says that there's something wrong here, turns out that the majority actually knows something. And to me, this is a world is flat moment, that the people who've learned to game the system, that this discomfort that we feel, we actually are right. Like, they actually don't understand the game they're in. Business is an infinite game, and when you play with a finite mindset, lots of people suffer, including the companies that they themselves are trying to build. That's the great irony. The great irony is the way you build great companies is with an infinite mindset. The way you build great companies is by prioritizing people before profit. The way you build great companies is will before resources. Both things important, but there has to be this general leaning where we can feel. When we come to work and feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves, where we feel that our work and our effort is worth more than simply the money we make.
We are designed to take care of each other. As social animals, it is in our biology that we will take care of each other. This is why it feels so good when somebody does something really nice for us with no expectation of anything in return. We've all had the experience where somebody does something nice and you're like, oh my God, thank you. And then they put their hand out, you're like, oh, it kind of like ruins the whole experience,
Completely,
right?
absolutely.
It ruins it. But when they just do it and they're like, no. And you're like, please. And you're like, no, it's my pleasure.
Yes.
You know, not only does our esteem for them go up, but it feels good. Yeah. Likewise, it feels good when we do something for someone else with no expectation of anything in return. When we give our time and our energy. Money actually doesn't work, believe it or not. Like if I told you I gave $500 to charity this morning, you'd be like, okay.
That's great, Simon.
But if I told you that last weekend I gave up my Saturday and went to painted schools in the inner city, you'd be like, nice, that's really awesome. Yeah. Right? Now, the value of my labor was worth a lot less than $500. And that's the point, right? That's the point, which is we are designed to take care of each other. And there's a chemical called oxytocin, which is the chemical responsible for our feelings of love and friendship and trust. When you look at somebody you adore and you go like this, that's oxytocin. When somebody touches you and says, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Touch creates oxytocin. It's so good to see you.
Yes.
You know, it actually makes us feel closer to each other,
Yes.
you know? When oxytocin is released in our bodies, not only does it make us feel good, not only does it boost our immune systems, but the more oxytocin we have in our bodies, it actually makes us more generous because the human body is trying to get us to look after each other. And it gets even better than that. The person who does the act of generosity, giving of time or energy without expectation of anything in return, they get a shot of oxytocin. The person on the receiving end gets a shot of oxytocin. And even witnessing an act of generosity or kindness releases oxytocin. It feels good to see somebody do something nice. And the more oxytocin we have in our bodies, as I said, means we're more likely to do something nice for somebody. This is the biology of pay it forwards. It's the human body's desperate attempt to get us to look after each other. And so when we create environments where we allow that to flow, it does naturally. It just takes care of itself. It's just biology. When we create environments where we restrict that, it actually does the opposite. It releases a chemical called cortisol, which is the feeling of stress and anxiety. Cortisol actually inhibits oxytocin, which means if we work in a poorly led organization, not only do we have high stress, but it actually inhibits empathy. In other words, I'm less likely to even want to care about somebody because of the poor leadership and the poor environment that's been provided for me to work in. Right? And the more cortisol we have in our bodies, stress goes up, anxiety goes up, it affects our immune systems. Happy people live longer. Happy people have lower rates of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, which means when you're in a position of leadership, you're actually medically responsible for the lives of these people. Get the environment right, they will live longer, they will suffer lower cases of disease, and they will probably have happier families because of it. Whereas if you're a bad leader, over the course of time, you're actually killing the people working with you. Our jobs are actually killing us.
The thinking of Milton Friedman, the 1970s economist, has really dominated sort of business theory today. He theorized that the responsibility of business, this is his definition, the responsibility of business is to maximize profit within the bounds of the law, right? What about ethics? You know, like a pharmaceutical company that raises the price on essential drug 200%, 300%, 500%, 800%, it's not illegal. It is unethical, right? It makes us uncomfortable, and yet the law is not broken. That's not a good enough standard to run a business. And it was his thinking that gave rise to the theory of shareholder supremacy, which was a theory proposed in the late 1970s, where we prioritize the wants, needs, and desires of a shareholder over the needs of the customer or the employee, which is like a coach who's trying to build a great team by doing what the fans want versus what the players need, right? That's basically shareholder supremacy. And as I said, it was just a theory proposed in the late 1970s that was popularized during the boom years of the 80s and 90s. Mass layoffs, where we use the livelihoods of human beings to meet arbitrary projections on an annualized basis at the end of the year, did not exist as a standard business practice prior to the 1980s. Did not exist. It was popularized during the 80s and 90s. The dismantling of Glass-Steagall, which was an act passed after the Great Depression to prevent another Great Depression from happening, and by the way, was extremely effective. Between the dismantling of the Glass-Steagall in the 80s and 90s and the Great Depression, there were a total of 0 stock market crashes. Since the dismantling, all in the name of corporate profit, we've had 3. We had the dot-com boom, Black Monday in 2008. In other words, when we play simply with a finite mindset, we actually do long-term damage to our own system that's supposed to benefit all of us. And I find that upsetting. We've seen the rise of Friedman's thinking, rather. And like I said, his theories dominate business today. And we feel it. Not only have we had those stock market crashes, but anybody who goes to work today, there's a general feeling of unease, especially if you work for a company that embraces annual or even quarterly layoffs to meet arbitrary projections. Keep in mind, a lot of the companies that employ mass layoffs are profitable, just not as profitable as they would like. It's not like they're losing money and they had to do this to save the sinking ship. That's something completely different. These are highly profitable companies that missed a projection, and so they laid people off so they could meet that projection. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And we know it because we feel it at work. We see this decline of trust. We are not loyal to our companies anymore. Why would we be? They're not loyal to us. And leaders set the tone. So when companies are loyal to us, we will give loyalty back to them. When they're not loyal to us, why would we be loyal to them? I'm tired of CEOs telling me that, millennials these days don't stick around very long. Well, why would they if you don't offer them any kind of loyalty back? And it's not for the people to prove to you that they're loyal, it's the other way around. We make time for the things that matter to us.
Yeah.
And of course I have regrets, but regrets is not, I wouldn't use the word regret. Of course there are things that I missed. But I made a choice, and I'm very happy with that choice, and I stand by that choice, because not only have I had the opportunity, the amazing experience to spread this message and see it actually grow and be bigger than me, but I've had the opportunity to live an absolutely surreal life because of it. My life profoundly changed course, and I can't. It's not fair to compare those things. They're not equals. Everybody with straight hair wants curly hair, and everybody with curly wants straight hair.
Brunette wants to be blonde.
I mean, I know people who have the stability in the home life and the families, and look at my life and be like, oh my God, I wish I had that. And you look at my life and I'm bouncing all around, and I mean, the answer is I'm really grateful for the life that I live. So no, regret is not the word that I would use.
But there was a price and a cost.
But there's a price and a cost that I took willingly. There are two currencies in the infinite game: will and resources. Resources is money. You need money to stay in the game, but you need the will of the people as well. And the problem is that when we organize to win, that means the score is more important than the inspiration and motivation that people have to give their blood, sweat, and tears. And when we prioritize resources before will, that's a problem. I've never met a CEO that doesn't believe their people are important. The problem is where on the priority list. You've been to any number of presentations where they put their priorities on the wall. Number 1, growth. Number 2, shareholder value. Number 3, our customer. Number 4, our employees. There it is. See, I do care about our people. And the reality is, as social animals, we want to work for and we're willing to give our blood, sweat, and tears to leaders who understand that the balance of those two essential currencies, the balance of those two things is will has to come before resources. And that doesn't mean 90-10. When I talk about putting people before profit, people freak out, which is ridiculous. You need fuel for the car to go. Money is fuel for the organization, of course. Even if there's a leaning, if it's 51-49, there has to be a slight leaning towards people, because there will always be decisions that a company has to make in which those two cannot both be supplied, and one will have to be sacrificed. The question is, which will you always prioritize? Let me give you a hypothetical example to make my point. 2 CEOs. The first CEO says, our number 1 priority is growth. And of course our people are important, because if we take care of our people, we will meet and exceed our financial goals. Second CEO says, our number 1 priority is our people. And if we take care of our people, we will always meet and exceed our financial goals. Which one would you rather work for?
I don't want to
I mean, it's obvious, right? It's obvious. So this is what it means to prioritize will over resources. It has, of course, money matters, but the people matter more.
Working at a hard job, working for a bad boss, can sometimes be one of the greatest educations ever. So the question is, can you change your mindset? Instead of waking up in the morning going, oh, I can't do this again, but rather view it as university. You're getting a master's degree in leadership, and you may be learning everything how not to do things. And to wake up in the morning and be like, what am I going to learn today? Early on in my career, I had a really bad boss who believed that she could get the most out of us by berating us. And she told me once that I had one of my reviews, and she said, you have no talent. And I was like, nothing? And she was like, nothing. This was her way of, I guess, motivating me. But I had such a good attitude about it for a couple of reasons. One, because I knew what I was up against every day, and instead of taking it personally, I viewed it as my education of how not to lead. And I literally would file this stuff all away and use it someday. I get to use it now. And also, misery loves company. I had a fantastic relationship with my team. We looked after each other because we all had this oppressive boss. We would compare the advice that we got in our little career building sessions. And and we took care of each other. And so we had a responsibility to each other. And that's where we cut our teeth on being leaders. And it actually made the job wonderful. Yes, there were days that were oppressive. Yes, there were days that I hated. Yes, there were days I wanted to like pull my hair out and just quit. But it's because of the team that I had, and we looked after each other, and the mindset of learning every day that I made the most of it. So I think mindset is a huge, huge, huge part of actually getting some joy out of a difficult job.
This is the practice of empathy. That if we're struggling to communicate to someone, if we're struggling to help someone be at their natural best, I'm tired of people saying to me, how do I get the best out of my people? Really? That's what you want? They're like a towel, you just wring them. How can I get the most out of them? No, how do I help my people be at their natural best? Right? We're not asking these questions. We are not practicing empathy. We have to start by practicing empathy and relate to what they may be going through. And it will profoundly change the decisions we make. It will profoundly change the way we see the world.
To see another amazing Simon Sinek video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
You have to have a just cause. You have to have trusting teams. You have to have a worthy rival. You have to have a capacity for existential flexibility, and you have to have the courage to lead.